Here we are. We are online. Right now, Amber. I scream, you scream, we all scream for live streams, as Amber has said.
I did
In,
say that.
in the immortal words of Amber. Speaking of which, we're having a fundraiser for Screams for Live Streams.
You're bizarre.
That way, we can raise money for all the screaming live streams out there. There's a lot of them.
I see.
Amber's like, what is wrong with you?
What's something? So I'll tell people about the poll.
Oh, yeah. Amber
Yes,
wanted to make a poll today.
yes, we have a poll. What's your favorite bug? I wanted to do favorite butterfly. As you might guess, butterflies are my favorite insect, but there are a lot of them out there, and I was like, I don't even know these butterflies by name until I looked them up with Google Lens. So
Mm-hmm.
and they don't let you like put pictures in, but we saw a morning cloak butterfly today. I got some pictures of it.
Yeah, Amber was very excited about getting pictures for her butterfly.
Yes, well, I've been trying to get pictures of the different butterflies with their wings open because they like to rest with their wings closed a lot of times. And this one actually, like, it was closed at first, but it slowly lowered its wings, and I got some pretty pictures.
Yeah, well, she did a good job. She's been stalking all of the butterflies in her neighborhood.
I have been.
She's been like sneaking up to them with her camera and taking pictures.
I have been.
She'll be like creeping up to the butterfly ever so slowly.
Yes, they don't notice me.
So that's the secret to catching the butterflies, or well, getting pictures of the butterflies is sneaking up to them and making sure they don't see you when you're walking towards them. I'm just gonna drop a hello into the chats, and then we're gonna get started.
In case, which probably no one absolutely cares, but in case anyone was wondering, my favorite butterfly is the monarch.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Mary. Welcome to the live stream.
Hello.
The live stream that screams, as Amber has phrased it. We are happy to see you. Can you hear us all right? If not, then that might be a problem.
It would be.
Amber's gonna have a special. You can hear us me a little bit. Is it quiet? Could be louder. It could be louder. I mean, I can make it louder. You can hear me all right? All right. Well, I can raise this up a little bit. Tell me if it gets too loud and too oppressive. Is that better, Mary? And Captain. Oh, now it's good. All right. Well then, there you go. I didn't want to blow out your ears because sometimes I get a little loud and I scream at the top of my lungs. Much better. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. I guess the recording settings are different from the other settings that I normally do. All right. So yeah, Amber was saying that her favorite butterfly is the monarch, and that's the most important thing that you can take away from this live stream today.
And we get a picture of a morning cloak butterfly today. That's the other important thing.
Yes. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome, Abigail. Welcome, Captain Fluffy Paws, and welcome, Mary. They're great. They are great. Our first letter today is titled, Am I a Jerk for Trying to Convince My Wife to Keep Her Mom Away from Us Because She Wants Us to Swap Kids with Her Other Daughter? That's right, folks. You read that right. Or I read it right. Depends on the perspective you want to take. Twins run in both of our families. We actually met at a twin festival in Ohio. My brother and I did not marry twin sisters or even sisters from the same family. But my wife does have a twin, and her sister has twins as well, as did we. We have twin boys that are about 6 months older than their female cousins. It makes for some very cute pictures. My mother-in-law might be ridiculous. She is trying to convince the daughters to trade. Like a boy for a girl. So each girl can have a brother, I guess. I think that this is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. My wife also agrees, but won't tell her mom to stop. My sister-in-law and her husband are on my side. It isn't something that any of us are entertaining at all. At first, I thought that she was just making a joke, and it was no such luck. She is seriously proposing this. The thing that might make me a jerk here isn't turning down this, she's not very nice to her mother-in-law. The thing, it's telling my wife that it might be a good idea to distance ourselves from her mom. My wife loves her mom and all her foibles. She says that it's just the way she is. I don't want my kids around someone who's unstable, so that they think that this is a normal thing to suggest. Edit, I need to make it clear that I did tell my mom that this was not going to happen and to stop bringing it up, and it's that my wife won't tell her. Alright, folks, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I think that it's important to this down and shut it down fast. There do need to be, like, kids are not just like little playthings that, like, oh, well, I want one of these and one of these, and you just swap them out. Like,
Yeah.
that's just such a weird thing to be like, well, it would be better if each girl had a brother. Like, it doesn't matter. Kids are fine with, can be fine with siblings of any gender.
Well, I mean, kids are accessories, right? What's the point
No.
of having children if you can't treat them like accessories? They're just like jewelry.
Yeah, no.
You get tired of them, you swap them out for other ones, you take them down to like
No.
the adoption agency, and like, can I get a new
No,
child
this is
here?
none of this. No, kids are their own little mini people, and you're supposed to love them as they are.
Well, for a little while until you
No,
trade them up for another kid.
no. And so yeah, this needs to be shut down and shut down fast. And if they have to distance themselves from mother-in-law until she stops, like it could be one of those things where if she brings it up, Opie he needs to get his wife on board somehow. But Opie takes the kids and just walks out of the room, walks out of the house, goes somewhere where mother-in-law isn't. It needs to be a consistent thing so mother-in-law learns this is not going to happen and she needs to stop.
I like Abigail's suggestion here. Exchange the mother-in-law for a sane mother-in-law. I mean, she seems to have some very peculiar ideas about what's acceptable. And I think that it's a shame that she is not leaving this alone. I mean, she really needs to. I think they need to get her into therapy or something like that, right? I mean, like, why does she think that this is okay
Mm-hmm.
to keep on bringing up and suggest? Like, why is it so important for her that the girl and boy grow up as brother and sister? Like, what does she think that the kids are missing out on? And that is the question that I really want to know. Like, how is the child's childhood going to be deficient if they don't have if they have a sister over a brother, right?
Right. Like I mean, I had a sister. I have a sister and a brother, but my brother wasn't born until I was almost 7, so he's much younger. And like, I love my brother, but I wouldn't say that if I had never had a brother, my life would have been like if if I had another sister instead of a brother,
Yeah.
that my life would have been severely deficient. Like, my siblings are people, and I love them for who they are.
Yeah, I'm over here cracking up because Mary was like, sounds like mother-in-law has been to one too many Christmas cookie swaps. I agree. It does sound that way. What does everyone have to say? I mean, I know I already
Yeah,
covered like some of the
you
comments.
read most of them. So Captain Fluffy Paw says children aren't dolls. The switch always makes me think of the one Reddit of Opie's mother filling in for her sister as the bride at her sister's wedding. And then Mary says, get mother-in-law a puppy or two. And then I think you've read the rest from there.
Yeah, pretty much. Speaking of mother-in-laws that are not necessarily the best mother-in-laws, that was the best segue yet. The best segue yet. Am I the jerk for thinking that my mother-in-law is becoming a little possessive of my unborn baby? This is my first pregnancy, and my mother-in-law has been overly excited. She has been waiting for grandchildren since her kids were 22. My in-laws live 20 minutes away from us, and she has never wanted to leave her home until she was told that I was pregnant. They are deciding to build a house next door to us to be closer to my baby. This house will be completed by the end of the year. She will be watching the baby when I return to work, as my mother has not yet retired. She informed me yesterday that she will be setting up a room for a baby when the house is complete. I asked her what the purpose of the room was for, and she said for my crib and anything that I buy for the baby, and they are calling it a playroom. She tried to give us a 34-year-old crib, and I was adamant with my husband that I didn't want it due to safety reasons. After a bit of back and forth, he finally said okay and told his mom. She is still planning on using the crib for herself. She knows that I'm not comfortable with this crib, and I'm also not comfortable with her building what I believe is a nursery for my child at her house. My husband's side of the family is extremely close, to the point where I have been told my husband and his mother come before me. I again asked him to speak with her about not using it, and I don't believe that I should be the one to say anything, due to the family dynamics. Am I the jerk for being dramatic with this situation? Alright, folks, what do you think?
No, you're not being dramatic. I am a little worried that they lived 20 minutes down the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving right beside you. They're putting a nursery in their house. Like, I'm a little concerned. It seems like mother-in-law wants to override OP and just like raise the baby as she wants to, and OP's husband doesn't seem to have a problem with it. Thinks his mom is more important. Like,
Yeah. So there's a few things that I think is wrong here, right? Like first, like OP's family's dynamic where they're like the mother-in-law comes before OP, right?
Mhm.
I think that's really problematic,
Yeah.
right? OP should not become after mother-in-law, right? This is her child, and she has the final say on that, right? Well, her and her husband have the final say. And I think that is really disrespectful that they would say that OP is going to be coming second here, right? Now, as for like the 34-year-old crib, like there are legitimate safety concerns about building this crib and having a kid in it, because I mean sometimes these older cribs and whatnot aren't up to the same safety standards, right? So I can understand OP not wanting that. And I mean, maybe it would be a good idea to sit down with mother-in-law and find out why she's so attached to this crib. Maybe it's that she used it for one of her children or something.
Yeah.
I think that it's like it's a little bit peculiar that she would be so insistent on this particular crib. As for like the building the house and everything like that, I mean, logistically, I guess it makes sense if she's going to be like wants to take care of the kid every single day.
But honestly, if you can afford it, I would look into alternate childcare arrangements. I do not think that, I think she's going to trample all over OP's boundaries.
Well, I mean, I would say if it wasn't this mother-in-law, then building a house or living next to your children and taking care of your child and having a playroom probably wouldn't be a big deal, because if they're going to be taking care of OP's child every single day, then it's a good idea for them to have a safe spot place for that child so that that kid can play and be in a safe environment, right? Nothing wrong with that. But I agree, like this particular mother-in-law where OP comes second and is going to be like constantly trampled over, that's not a good situation. And I mean, in that respect, I think that maybe OP should consider alternate care for their child. But sometimes people don't have that option because daycare is expensive, right?
Right. And I mean, also maybe and this is tricky because he might get partial custody in the divorce. Like, I don't know if there's any keeping the kid away from his mom and her shenanigans. But yeah, you have a husband problem if he's like, yeah, my mom comes first above you. That should not be the case.
Yeah. What do the comments have to say?
So Mary says his mother comes before OP. That says all we need to know right there. Abigail says a 34-year-old crib, and Mary says more like a 34-year-old in a crib. Captain Fluffy Paws says, I understand wanting to be there for grandchildren, but this is too much. Seems like mother-in-law has a major empty nest.
Yeah.
Also, she has a slight husband problem. And Mary says, gotta draw boundaries right now and consequences of crossing those boundaries so hubby can't complain that OP sprung them on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point.
And who wants to bet mother-in-law already has a house key?
Oh, I'm betting she does. I'm absolutely betting she does. And speaking of, I don't have a good segue here. I don't know what's wrong with my segues today. They're broken. I guess we're just gonna have to.
The segue here is speaking of problematic
So yeah,
dads.
Speaking of problematic dads, I came up with that one all by myself. Our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for deliberately misunderstanding my child's father? So, I had a baby some weeks ago with my partner, who I'm not married with. We've been together for a while, and I've given many compromises in this relationship. While discussing baby names, we had a few disagreements on names and ultimately decided on a name that we both liked well enough. The surname was a sticking point. He wanted a baby to have his name alone. I offered to hyphenate because logistically it's easier for the baby to have both of our names. He's been drinking the red pill Kool-Aid lately, and a large bone of contention in this relationship, and went off about how it's tradition and the right thing to do, and that it is his right as a man to have a baby with his surname. He told me that I would be emasculating him and may as well be a single parent if I won't grant him this one little ask. My word is final. Baby is having my word is final. Baby is having one surname. This was late in my pregnancy, and I didn't have it in me to fight, so I told him that I understand what he's saying. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago when the baby's birth certificate came along. He blew a gasket when he saw that I hadn't given the baby my surname. He rehashed our conversation above, saying that I agreed to give the baby his surname. This is where I might be the jerk. I did nothing of the sort. I told him that I understood, which I did, but he never asked if I agreed with him. I told him that there's no way that I was doing all the work of making a baby for him to stick his name on it. When he brought up tradition, I told him it's also tradition for him to marry me before having a baby, but he was happy to ignore that. I told him that it was traditional for him to be the provider, but I do that too, and I pointed out the holes in his logic. I told him trying to bully me into submission with his red pill BS when I was exhausted from pregnancy didn't work. He should have known better than to expect me not to share my surname with my child. He said the baby should only have one surname. They do. So why is he mad? He went crying to his brothers and mother, all traditionalists and misogynists, and now they're all up at arms. Am I the jerk? I did add, there seems to be some confusion. We are not married or engaged. I don't believe in it, and he's never seen the point in bringing that state into your relationship. So we agreed never to marry. He's on the birth certificate as the father of the baby, just has my last name, but the father listed. Thanks for the feedback. I'll be asking him to come for a talk so I can plainly address the issues you folks helped me to see. Thank you for that. All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. He was being a jerk by trying to bully Opie into this. I think Opie had a perfectly reasonable compromise, give the baby both surnames.
Mm-hmm.
But if he demanded just one, then the baby got just one.
I mean, I think that this conversation should have been something that they addressed a long time ago, right? I mean, it seems like there's a fundamental lack of compatibility here.
Well, it also sounds like it's a recent development, though. Like, he's just gone down the red pill thing, and so they may have been on board before, and now all of a sudden, it sounds like there's been a recent development in the relationship of him kind of going back on everything and spewing all this nonsense at OP.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they had had a discussion in the past, though, before they started even considering having children, then she could have brought that up and been like, you said before that this was fine, right? I mean, I think that it's just one of those things that you have to have a discussion about before you even consider having children, right? And I mean, sometimes accidents happen and you don't have time to consider that. But it sounds like they were having these discussions right at the end of her pregnancy, which I think is like, it adds a lot of additional stress to a pregnancy, right?
Yeah, well, it sounds like it might have been ongoing, but he was just trying to bully her into submission until she finally gave up on fighting him.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like, these are important things for people to be on the same page about, and I just feel bad for OP because, clearly she has a very different vision of how to what they want in their relationship than what their partner does at this point in time. I mean, there might be irreconcilable differences at this point in time, right?
That's what it sounds like. This doesn't sound like a healthy or functional relationship. He's running to his brothers and his mom when he has an issue with what OP did. It isn't a healthy relationship.
Yeah. So I feel like either they need to get marriage counseling. Yeah, marriage counseling, right? Couples counseling. Or they need to kind of see that this relationship has run its course, right? And it also sounds like OP is doing like a lot on their own here because OP's like, oh, I pay all the bills. I do all this other stuff. And what does he contribute to this relationship then, right? I mean, I don't know. OP doesn't make that very clear. I don't know. I think that might be a fundamental lack of compatibility. But what do the folks have to say?
So let's see. Captain Fluffy Paw says the issue of the surname should have been talked about years ago. Abigail says, LOL, it's tradition to marry the woman you have a child with. Don't want to marry the mother. Don't get to have your child have your surname. And that actually is. The tradition was that if the couple was unmarried, the child would generally take the mother's surname.
Yeah.
Um, and Mary says, well, Daddy is pretty picky and choosy about which traditions he finds valid. Also, tradition for moms to get primary custody, so Daddy better watch it. Time for the court to set the rules. That is tradition, too.
That is tradition. I like that tradition. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Leaving Without Explanation After My Mother-in-Law Pretended Not to Hear Me? I'm a 32-year-old.
segue?
No segue. Yeah, there is no segue. We're just driving off the cliff here, folks.
Okay.
Straight into the depths. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I have a 7-month-old daughter with my husband, a 34-year-old male. My country does ensure long maternity leave for up to 2 years. However, I'm self-employed and I cannot afford to lose my clients, so I work while my daughter is sleeping during the weekends. Lately, she has been teething, so I am operating on little to no sleep. I have an issue with my mother-in-law. She does what she wants despite people asking her not to, and then says oops or denies doing it. Things like that. It was annoying before the baby, but after she was born, it became insufferable. Husband talked to her and set some boundaries, so she stopped doing that when my husband was present, but she will still do it when it's only me in the room. So we agreed that she cannot visit when my husband is not home, and husband is not to leave me alone with her. Because of these boundaries, we did not see them for 1.5 months. They live 2 hours away, and we did not find a mutually good time. They finally came over last Sunday. Well, 20 minutes into the visit, my father-in-law wants to see the lawnmower that is broken down, so my husband goes into the backyard with him, leaving me, the baby, and mother-in-law inside. She's drinking coffee and eating cake. She sits next to my daughter on her playmat and she tries to feed her some cake. I immediately told her that no, she can't have that. Mother-in-law pretends not to hear me and then proceeds with putting a spoon into my daughter's closed mouth. I repeated, stop doing that. And she can't have cake yet, and definitely not from your spoon. She pretends not to hear me. I repeated again, still nothing, and now there's cake on my baby's face, and she's fussing. So I grab my daughter, and I go to my husband and my father-in-law, subtly gesture for him to come back inside. After about 5 minutes, mother-in-law decided to go outside too, and was approaching me and the baby. I gestured to my husband again, and he made an annoyed face. I had no energy to deal with any of this, so I stood up, I went inside, I grabbed the baby bag, the car keys, and I went to the car without saying a word. Mother-in-law asked where I was going, and I ignored her. I say that's a ignored for ignored. I drove my sister to my sister's, which is about 15 minutes drive, and there were some missed calls from my husband, so I texted him where I was, and that we'll be back in the evening. It was time for my daughter's nap, and she fell asleep breastfeeding, so my sister told me to go to sleep too. After she woke up and had her milk, my sister took her and told me to go back to sleep. I slept for about 3 hours in total, and my phone was on silent, so my husband's calls were ignored, and apparently his parents left disappointed, and mother-in-law cried. My husband is furious that I did this. We're still fighting about it. He can't believe that I was so rude and took the baby away when his parents came to see her after such a long time. He's angry that I couldn't have just waited 5 minutes so that he could finish talking about the lawnmower. I told him that I'm too exhausted to deal with this nonsense, and he left me alone with mother-in-law despite our agreement, be it only 10 minutes. So I left. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, I don't think Opie's in the wrong here because this is an ongoing issue, it seems like. And husband had agreed not to leave Opie alone with mother-in-law. I don't know why they didn't just like invite mother-in-law outside and be like, hey, you got to come with us if we're going to look at the lawnmower or something. But he should have made sure that Opie was not left alone because he knew his mom was going to push boundaries. And when Opie signaled and was like, hey, I need you, he should have gone to see what was up instead of like keep talking about the lawnmower.
Yeah, I mean, the lawnmower was not the biggest concern at that point in time, right? I mean, I understand that they're trying to have a conversation, they're trying to like bond or whatever, right? But it feels a lot more like, you know how sometimes people will just kind of like do the important job and, you know, kind of ignore other things so that they don't have to deal with like other drama and situations.
Mm-hmm.
Feels a lot like he's just ignoring the situation because he doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
As opposed to sticking with his agreement and actually defending OP and standing, helping to set those boundaries.
And honestly, this seems like a very fair consequence because
Mm-hmm.
if OP just like if nothing happened, mother-in-law would keep pushing that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to have consequences, and if she can't see the baby, if the baby is removed from her presence when she does these things, that's perfectly valid. And OP's husband needs to get on board with
Oh yeah,
this.
yeah. But what do the folks have to say?
So Abigail says, I would be so tempted to start calling mother-in-law names, and when she got upset, I'd say, "Oh, I thought you couldn't hear me." Mary says, whenever hubby brings up this lame mother-in-law argument, I would reply, "I can't hear you." And Captain Fluffy Paws says, definitely a husband problem and mother-in-law problem. And then Mary says, Abigail, now I can't stop thinking of mean names for mother-in-law.
Speaking of people who keep violating boundaries, or people that violate boundaries, our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Asking My Maid of Honor to Leave My Wedding Ceremony? I'm a 27-year-old female, and I finally got married after some delays due to some issues, so I was very much looking forward to this day. For some context, I am very allergy prone and especially allergic to most flowers and floral scents, which trigger my severe asthma. Even for my wedding, I had limited flower arrangements, most being fake flowers, including my bridal bouquet. My maid of honor, who had been my best friend for years now, knows of my allergy to florals and knows how bad my asthma attacks get when I smell it. For some reason, she decided to use a new floral perfume for my wedding, citing the special occasion as the reason to change. I didn't really mind until I was in the small church altar and started having issues with breathing since she was right behind me and I could smell her perfume, especially since it seemed like she had doused herself in it. My husband and mother noticed and paused the ceremony so I could take my inhaler and asked if my mother-in-law if she could move, and I asked if my maid of honor could move back to the bridesmaids line, to the back of the bridesmaids line, because it's not like I could ask her to shower or somehow uh, in the moment remove the perfume smell from herself. She vehemently denied me and said that I should be fine with my inhaler. This wasn't true. With a lot of times, my SOS inhaler doesn't work and I end up having to be rushed to the hospital, especially for severe allergies like the one that have anything to do with florals. My husband's mother and the other bridesmaids asked her to move as well. I was off in the corner, grabbing my meds, so the ceremony could continue. But she kept saying no, and that she was the maid of honor, and it was unfair to take away the opportunity from her over something as stupid as perfume. Now, in any other situation, I would just remove myself from my own well-being, but this was my own wedding. I just can't walk out of my own wedding ceremony, so I asked her to leave, and eventually, after some tears, she left. We took about a 15-minute recess, and then continued the ceremony, but quite frankly, I couldn't enjoy it without her, and because after that, my maid of honor's family attacked me online and sent me some nasty messages. They were at the wedding as well, since we've known each other for years, and they treated me like their own daughter, but they left along with my maid of honor. It's been less than 24 hours, but so much has been said, many telling me that I could have waited more and not kicked her out. I'm so genuinely confused if I'm the jerk here, especially because I didn't like the way she trivialized my asthma, which she knows has made me suffer since childhood. And I hate that my oldest friendship is at risk over perfume of all things. Am I the jerk? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, absolutely not the jerk. Your ability to breathe and not have to go to the hospital on your wedding day supersedes her, whatever she's doing.
I don't know about that. That's pretty unreasonable. I mean, breathing, who needs that stuff, right? I mean, it's just air. It's all around you. It's not like it's that important.
Yeah, it kind of is important. Like, just the audacity. Like, I'm wondering if it's deliberate, but even if it wasn't, like, if I wore something that like made someone start having like an allergy attack, I would immediately like want to get out of there for their well-being. I would be apologetic. Oh my goodness, I had no idea that this would trigger this allergy. Like, let me run and like go from there. The fact that she showed no remorse and
Yeah.
the way her family all piled on OP, knowing how severe her allergy is, it's so gross.
Yeah. So I do want to interject here, right? I want to say, let's wildly and rampantly speculate for a moment in the comments about why the maid of honor decided to wear this perfume.
To get OP out of the chapel so she could marry her husband instead.
You think that this is like a married, I want her husband type of thing? Like,
That's just no. I don't think that's the case, but that's my wild, rampant speculation. Is just
yeah,
make
yeah.
it so intolerable. Maybe send Opie to the hospital so she can swoop in and console the groom.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe if OP is out of the picture, they all have all of the wedding stuff there
Yeah,
still.
exactly.
So maybe it just makes sense for her, the maid of honor, and the
The groom
groom.
to because the maid of honor is obviously the next most important person there. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a ceremony. That's all. Like it's just meant to like symbolize it. It's not like the bride would miss out on anything.
like I need more details on this friend, and like has she done these kind of things before? Like maybe not to this level, but like has she subtly interfered with OP's events before? Or, like is this just a thing where she can't handle someone else having the spotlight?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I hope that OP ends up being able to, you know, I don't know. Like, it's hard because it would be nice if they could mend their relationship, right? But
but she'd have to like acknowledge that she did something wrong and
yeah,
get her family to admit they did something wrong by harassing OP.
yeah, because OP didn't do anything wrong. She needs to breathe for her
Mm-hmm.
wedding, and all these other people are just being very, very, rude to her.
Like I can't understand how you could see someone suffering on their wedding day and just be like, "Oh, no big deal."
Yeah, but what the comments have to say?
So Captain Fluffy Paw says she should have run it by the bride before putting on the new perfume, not the jerk. Mary says, "You can't make me move. This is my day."
Yeah.
Geez, where did all this animosity come from? Abigail says, "Wow, the entitlement of maid of honor. If she was a close enough friend to be a maid of honor, she sure should have realized the perfume was a bad idea." Marcia says, "I feel sorry for the baby to immature parents. The maid of honor was rude. She knew her asthma problems and shouldn't have worn that perfume. Then not moving out of the line next to her. Why wouldn't she do that to save her friend's wedding, etc.?"
Yeah, exactly.
And Mary says, "Maybe maid of honor is looking for a good Reddit story."
Maybe.
And Abigail says, "My sister-in-law is sensitive to scents. I wouldn't dream of doing this to her."
Yeah. And welcome, Marcia. We're happy to have you here with us. Speaking of unreasonable demands, our next letter is titled, "Am I a jerk for telling my wife that she is foolish for giving half of her income to her pastor?" So, I'm a 36-year-old male, and my wife, a 32-year-old female, writes serialized fiction on various apps. And I thought that she earned high as $8,000 every month. We've built a house together, we've both contributed, but most of the cash came from her since she earns way more. Yesterday, I found that she hasn't been honest about her income. She actually earns $15,000 and a few times $20,000 depending on how much she writes. How many people pay to read that month, and money from writing the content that she wins. Well, contests that she wins. But she gives half of the money to her pastor because she has a covenant with God to always give away half of her income as a tithe. This really made me mad. This is money that we could use for so many other things: savings, investments, and even a trust fund for our kids. We have two, aged 8 and 6. I told her to stop or at least reduce the percentage, but she refused. I got upset and told her that she was extremely foolish for this since the pastor was probably keeping most of the money for himself anyways. It was an ugly argument. She called me a jerk who was trying to control her and said that it's not my money, so I can't tell her what to do. I spent the night elsewhere and haven't gone back home because I'm still upset. Am I wrong for how I reacted and telling her that we could use the money for better things? Am I the jerk? P.S. I know that the monthly incomes sound outrageous, and to those who won't believe it, you can try searching those platforms, look the names for those accusing me of advertising, to see how much authors earn from them. My wife writes about 6 of these platforms. And another reason why I'm so mad is that my wife is breaking her back writing. She barely sleeps on top of going through chores because she has to publish chapters every day in order not to miss monthly bonuses. So for her to give half of that away is infuriating. And at two, my wife earns in USD, but we do not reside in the United States. All right, folks, what do you think of this one?
I mean, I don't think OP's in the wrong for being upset about this. They're a married couple, and it sounds like he's been kept in the dark about her actual income.
Yeah,
And so she's essentially been lying to him for the duration of their marriage.
yeah.
And that's a problem. And when you're a married couple, you have to make kind of big financial decisions jointly. Like, it's understandable if she wants to tithe to her church,
Oh, yeah.
but usually tithing is like topped out at like 10% of your income.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, like what you said, this is something that they should have had a conversation about. And if she really feels obligated to give 50% of her income, um, I think that she should search why she feels obligated, though, right? Is this something that she's willingly doing? Like, is this something that she feels like the church is doing such a great job with this money, and that it's being a good steward, and it's going and doing all kinds of outreach, and that the community is better for it? Then, okay, yeah, I can see why she would want to donate money to this church, right? If the husband is right and that this money is going straight into the pastor's pocket, that isn't necessarily a good thing. I mean, there are some pastors, unfortunately, that are unscrupulous and do take advantage of the members of their churches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the biggest thing, again, is like they aren't having honest and open discussions about finances and how much she's earning. And I think that is actually really unfortunate because they're supposed to be working together as a team. And I can understand his frustration that she's working so hard and then also not earning as much as she could be, right?
Right. And my question is, if she is so short in what she is doing, why wasn't she honest from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important question, right? And so I feel bad because I think that she is doing what she feels is right, but I'm hoping that it isn't a situation where the pastor is pocketing the money and whatnot, because that would be really just heartbreaking if she was doing all this work just to enrich somebody, so.
Yeah, well, my question is, like, where did she get the 50% tithe from? Like, is that something that the pastor is asking for? And,
Yeah.
like, using as an example of, like, if it's something she decided independently, like,
Yeah.
again, she's not in the right for doing that without consulting her partner, because whether their finances are shared or separate, they're still raising the same kids together, and their
Yeah.
financial decisions affect the family. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's important to be on the same page at least.
Yeah.
But if the pastor is like, you need to tithe 50% or you're a bad person, like, that's a garbage pastor right there.
Yeah. But what do the comments have to say?
So Abigail says, it's in the Bible to give 10%. Apparently she knows better than the Bible, lol. Mary says, these things should be discussed beforehand, info, or the finances completely separate. I agree, Brian. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, every penny of donations goes straight to the kids. No mansions for the pastor. Marsha says, God asks for 10%, but you can give what you want. But you can give what you can. Her family should come first after the 10%. She's also a liar, so that isn't what a Christian should do. Something fishy, go to the pastor and have a talk.
Yeah. Speaking of something that's fishy, our next letter is titled, My wife, a 31-year-old female, won't let me complete my MBA, a 37-year-old male. How do I convince her? Maybe fishy isn't the right word here.
I don't know. Oki's being a little fishy here.
It has always been my dream to do an MBA at a top school, and I shared this with my wife before getting married 8 years ago. We currently live in Denver, Colorado, and we both work full-time in different banks. We have 2 kids, a 6-month and a 5-year-old, and I got admitted to Stanford GSB. I did my MSc in Stanford, and I don't need to be there for 2 years. 12 to 18 months should be enough to complete the program and go back to Colorado. Now that we're discussing for a move for 12 to 18 months in California, this is getting messy, although her bank would allow her to work remotely. Her arguments is that you are too old for an MBA and it'll make no difference in your future. It's going to be a lot of work to move, change schools, and find a new place. My arguments are, this is definitely going to help me achieve my goals. It's good to change change and have new experiences. What can I do to convince her without creating more tension in the relationship? Thank you. All right, folks, what do you think?
Well, OP, you're not going to get the advice you want from me. I mean, I think he needs to think long and hard because he's like, this will definitely help me with my future. In what concrete ways?
Yeah,
And is there a reason why he can't do a MBA from a less prestigious school that's closer to home
yeah,
or an online one?
yeah.
Like there's a lot of options for MBAs these days that don't require uprooting your entire family. Like if they own a house, they'd have to sell the house, buy
Mm-hmm.
a house in California where housing prices are very expensive.
Yeah,
And then and it sounds like the wife, if she's working remotely, she's not going to get a corresponding salary increase. And if she's supporting them, that time period, then, they might be struggling financially.
yeah,
Like it seems like a really big ask. And I know he's like, oh, it's just a year, but like you're gonna have to sell your house, buy a new house. And then in a year's time, you gotta sell your house again, move back to Colorado. And are you even gonna get a good deal on a house?
yeah. I just want to interject real quick here. Hi, June.
Hi.
Welcome. Yeah, I think Amber brings up a lot of great points there. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. I think that this is one of those things where he's trying to convince her, but you can have a discussion, but needs to be a two yes thing, right? And at a certain point, if his arguments aren't good enough to convince her, then maybe this is like a decision that he either needs to decide that I want to go off on my own and not
Mm-hmm.
be part of this family, or he needs to realize that this is going to put too much stress on their family and that he needs to either accept, like what you said, a lower prestige school, or do something completely remote, or even take some time and just fly over to California and be single over there for a little while, right? I mean, that might be another option where he doesn't take the family, right?
Right, because uprooting his wife and kids, like that is a very big ask. And so, like, is there a way he could do this for a year and support just himself so he'd only have to find lodging for himself and they wouldn't lose their family home?
Yeah, and not to mention like the interest rates and stuff like that, they're going to
Yeah.
be a lot higher now. So
Yeah.
buying another house with higher interest rates and everything like that might really do a number on their finances. So I can understand her hesitation with moving, and I think that OP is asking the wrong question. What can I do to convince my wife? It's more like, what can you do to make sure you don't wreck your marriage, right?
Yeah, and that you're still supporting your family,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
because it's fine to have dreams, but you have to also ask, is this going to be at the cost of my family's well-being?
yeah. What do the comments have to say?
So let's see. Marcia says, agree with Amber. June says, I have to agree with Amber. So many options. Marcia says, isn't it a 2-year MBA? Life changes since they first spoke of him getting to a top school.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a really good thing to address right there, is that there have been a lot of life changes since they
Mm-hmm.
made this discussion. Like 8 years is a long time, and to be like, oh, by the way, I want to hold you to this 8 year type of thing,
Right. It
right?
was before their kids were born too, and I
Yeah,
think the wife just assumed they were settled and everything was fine, and so OP is kind of throwing a big monkey wrench into the plans.
yeah, yeah.
Abigail says, I agree with you folks. And Marshall says, and who wants to move to California? I wouldn't. Mary says, OP's list should include what exactly will an MBA accomplish? Does he have any promises or even hints that this will make a difference? Not always the case. And like, I have not gone for an MBA, but like, state schools are good schools. I have all my degrees from a state school, and I don't think it's ever hindered me in my life because I didn't go to like a big name Ivy League.
But speaking of more, I mean, we're kind of like all the unreasonable demands today, or reasonable
Everything.
demands. Everything is an unreasonable demand, but in this particular case, maybe it's not as unreasonable as one might think. Will I be a jerk if I didn't invite my sister or my parents to my wedding and I kept all of the details from them so they don't bring their adopted sister slash daughter? And this is unreasonable from the other side, right? OP is perhaps not the unreasonable one. We'll give you that. This is difficult for me because I really don't know if I'm doing something totally wrong here and I need some perspective. I'm a 26-year-old female and I have an older sister, Veda, a 28-year-old female. Veda was always the favorite child of both of our parents. They focused more on her when we were growing up and she really couldn't do anything wrong. They weren't terrible to me when I was younger, but I was overlooked a lot. Veta also always overlooked me. If she was free and had nobody else to play with, she would play with me, but most of the time she focused on other people and other things. Veta has a best friend, Eliza, a 28-year-old female, and they were inseparable for the most part throughout their childhoods. Eliza was a constant at our house, and she often brought along with our family on family vacations and stuff because she was seen as part of the family. But Eliza was horrible to me. She bullied me badly. On 4 separate occasions, my parents were called to the school because of the bullying, and it had escalated. One time, Eliza attempted to humiliate me in front of a changing room full of kids by grabbing my pads and screaming about how gross and that I was for bleeding in front of everyone. I was 12 at the time, and she was 14, and was days away from leaving middle school, and kept going off to high school. Another time, she stole my diary that I kept and showed it to some of the kids in the high school. So it went around the school pretty quickly, and it was another call to my parents. My parents and sister still loved Eliza, though it was explained as Eliza was having a terrible life, and this is why she did this stuff. So when I was 13 and she was 15, and my parents then finally formally adopted her, because Eliza's parents were willing to let my parents. It stung badly, and it made my home life miserable. I moved out as fast as I could and never acknowledged Eliza as my sister. My parents and Veta never liked that. They told me that I should embrace Eliza and work to move past it without Eliza needing to apologize. I have been low contact with them for years, but they heard through some people that I was engaged, and they were upset that I hadn't told them. They told me that a wedding invite would have caught them by complete surprise, to which I replied that they weren't going to be invited. Needless to say, that they don't like that. I told them that if I was willing to invite them for appearances, for the sake, for appearances' sake, I know that they'll bring Eliza, and that isn't going to be happening. They told me that Eliza is my sister too, and part of the family, and that all 4 should be invited. They told me that if I don't invite my family, I'm publicly making a fuss and humiliating them out of spite, and it would be wrong. Will I be the jerk if I don't invite them? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, you would not be the jerk. Do not invite these people. They do not care about you. They're more concerned about their golden child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a very clear case of blatant favoritism that has led to absolute neglect.
Yeah, golden children.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is a pretty terrible situation for OP, right?
It is. Like, the family would just welcome her bully with open arms and expect her to get over it.
Yeah.
No apologies, no nothing. Just deal with it now. She's your sister. Like, no. She's not OP's sister. She'll never be OP's sister. Just because you sign an adoption certificate doesn't make her OP's sister.
Well, and I love how these people are like, oh, you're humiliating us.
Right.
Like, they haven't been part of her life in ages, and now suddenly OP's humiliating them, right? No, they're not part of your life. She's chosen not to hang around you people. You're not part of her family. She's chosen not to acknowledge you as part of her family.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think at this point in time, even if they dropped Eliza, like, OP probably still wouldn't want contact with them, right?
I mean, it's unforgivable what they've done.
Yeah. But what do the comments have to say?
So Abigail says, how do you love someone who treats your child this way? Captain Fluffy Paws says, not the jerk. Eliza is a horrible person. Mary says, parents of the year? I think not. Parents should not be invited. Captain Fluffy Paws says, also go no contact with his family. And Mary says, if they can choose to make Eliza a family member, Opie should choose to separate from the fold.
Speaking of bridezillas, I don't know. OP's not being a bridezilla in the last one. Am I the jerk for walking out of the bridal salon when I found out my friends were making fun of me behind my back? I have 2 friends, Gabby and Shelly. All of us are 23, if that matters. We were roommates in college and stayed in the same city after graduation. While the 3 of us are close, I've always known that Gabby and Shelly are the closest. They have a really sweet friendship. Well, Shelly is getting married, Gabby is the maid of honor, and I'm one of the bridesmaids. Over the weekend, I went with Shelly so that she could look at wedding dresses. Gabby was supposed to come with us, but got called into work last minute. I helped Shelly pick out some dresses, then she went with the consultant to try them on. Shelly asked if I could take a picture and a video on the phone to send to her mom and Gabby. I was getting the camera ready when a text from Gabby came through. I didn't mean to click on it, and it was instantly going to click back, but then I saw one of my Instagram pictures in their private chat from earlier that morning. Both were making fun of me for the face that I was making and my outfit choice. It didn't appear to be in good nature. I admit curiosity got the best of me, so I searched my name in the chat. I found multiple pictures that my boyfriend, or my mom have posted of myself, absolutely ripping me to shreds, ranging from selfie poses to shots for even a few baby pictures. They'd also make fun of me in general terms for the way I talked, wore my hair, and of the way I ate. This went back as far as I could tell, at least last year. My heart broke. It all felt so juvenile and high school. While we joked around, I would never do this to them, nor have they ever tried to instigate these types of conversations with me about the one or the other. I was in tears. As someone who was bullied all through middle school and high school, it just brought back me to a horrible place. I put the phone into Shelley's purse and I brought it to another employee, telling her to tell Shelley that I had to go. I drove home and I had a long cry. Shelley texted me by the time that I made it home asking where I went, and I said that I was going home and that we could talk later. When she did call a few hours later, she was understandably confused and hurt that I had left. I told her what I found, explaining that I only looked further because of the initial text that I accidentally saw. She went off on me for looking through her private text and said that those were none of my business. She also told me that I shouldn't have left the store without saying anything. I said that I didn't want to make a scene, but I also knew that I couldn't fake being happy for her. Shelley told me that the texts were all in good fun, and that she clearly loves me because I'm going to be her bridesmaid. She added that I'm only hurt because I chose to read all of those texts. Later on, Gabby called me to tell me that I had invaded Shelley's privacy and hurt her by walking out. My boyfriend and mom think that I did the right thing by walking out, but obviously they're a little biased. I just want some unbiased looks. Was I a jerk for leaving or looking through the text and then leaving? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk, and those people are not your friends. I mean, I understand people get upset and have to vent about their friends sometimes, but this goes beyond that. They are just belittling you for because they can, like tearing down OP's baby pictures, tearing down every picture she posts. Like, that's not what friends do.
I mean, OP just seems like that they're friends with these people so that they can sit and make fun of her, right? She's
Right.
just a source of entertainment for them. Like, yeah, we're friends with you, but we're gonna sit here and laugh at you and ridicule you and mock you, and it's all in good fun because it's fun for us. And we don't ever have to share this with you, but we'll just continue to make fun of you and stuff like that, right? I mean, they're not good people.
No.
So I can't blame OP at all for being upset by the situation. It just seems like they are just very petty and mean, high schoolish type of things. Mean girls. They're mean girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what do the comments have to say?
So June says those are not your friends. True friends don't treat you like that.
Exactly.
Mary says can't think of a better reason to walk out and keep walking. Abigail says that's pretty terrible. Captain Fluffy Paw says not the jerk, you shouldn't be their punching bag. Mary says clearly loves OP because she's a bridesmaid. Tis to laugh. Abigail says not the jerk. Some people keep others around purely to tear them down, and it's super messed up. And Mary says I would find a really fun getaway for the wedding weekend and spend the gift money on a massage.
I think that a massage would be a great idea without all the petty mean people. All right, folks. And speaking of more wedding stories, we have so many. Speaking of more entitled brides. Am I a jerk for refusing to lend my friend my house for her wedding after she asked me for a paternity test, resulting in her having to cancel the wedding? My friend Sandra and I have known each other for over 20 years. We are 30 and 32. Sandra is getting married to Andre, and I'm married to Ian. Some relevant information: Andres is originally from the same country that I'm from and even the same region. We share many characteristics. We both have very round faces, deep brown eyes, long straight black hair, etc. If you don't know better, you might assume that we are siblings. I met Andres 6 years ago, introduced him to Sandra. He proposed 2 years ago. I own a beautiful property in my home country that I was ready to lend to Sandra and Andres for their wedding. My property is like a finca and it has 10 rooms. Unusually, I would rent it out for weddings and somewhat high price, but I was happy to give it to them at no cost, with the condition that they hire their own catering and have their guests strip their beds when they leave. The issue is this. 3 months ago, Sandra became more reclusive. She wouldn't answer my text and didn't meet up with me. 2 weeks ago, she appeared at my door with Andres, and they sat down, my husband included, and said that she is suspecting that my daughter is actually Andres' biological daughter and requested a paternity test for some peace of mind. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything. My husband lost his temper and raised his voice, telling Sandra that she was being absolutely ridiculous. Sandra pointed out that my daughter looks like Andres, explained that Andres and I look alike. I explained that we looked alike. She kept shaking her head, saying that my daughter looked more like my husband, and that my daughter would look more like my husband, and not an exact copy of me. The evening ended poorly, and I agreed to test if they paid for it. The results came back last Friday, showing that Andres was not the father. You are not the father, Murray. We're going to the Murray. We also did a test confirming that my husband is the father. She cried and tried to hug me. I told her that I didn't want to do that and that I didn't want to be friends with her for the time being. She kept saying that she was worried, that her worries were justified, and made a comment about women from your country being more likely to do that. That's just rude.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, I was filled with anger, and I told her that she could forget about using the venue and that I didn't want her in my life anymore. She started crying, but I made her leave. Her mom said that she has been texting me saying that they can't find a new venue. I still said no. 20 minutes ago, Sandra called me sobbing, saying that the wedding is off because of me. Am I the jerk here? Should I have let her use the venue at the usual price? Or is what I did okay? Edit, Andres was not chill about this at all. He seemed exasperated. He was quite upset and basically just agreed to this so that she would drop it. I didn't include the information here because I didn't see it being relevant for the conflict between me and Sandra. All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. This was a ridiculous demand on her part. You do not need to humor someone who
is a racist?
Yeah.
Yes, let's not humor racists, right?
Right. Like, and also doesn't have a very good grasp on how genetics work because you can have kids who come out looking like a carbon copy of one parent.
Yeah.
That's not unheard of.
You can have kids who come out looking like a grandparent.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just sometimes certain genes manifest themselves and kids come out looking a certain way.
Like, she just got this really weird insecurity, and instead of, like, I don't know, going to counseling, like, she distrusts her partner enough that she's like, I'm pretty sure you fathered someone else's child. They shouldn't be getting married in the first place, like, until she's addressed this insecurity. Not by forcing people to get DNA tests, but, like, working through her feelings and figure out where this distrust is coming from.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of all that, right? It sounds like OP would have been willing to let them use the property, right? Even after this DNA test and stuff like that, right? But then she went ahead and was like, well, you can't blame me because that's how women like you are from your home country,
yeah,
right?
Like, that's so awful of her. She's been so bad on so many levels.
Like, it sounds like Andres was going to be like, okay, fine, whatever, we'll just get married, right? But then suddenly, at this point in time, like, after all these other comments and stuff like that, and OP just canceling the venue, it sounds like he was like, yeah, I guess I'm out of this now. Just like, I guess the moral of this story is that if you're racist, then maybe you deserve to be left at the altar, right? But what do the comments have to say?
So the comments say, let's see. Captain Fluffy Paws says, husband has a right to blow a lid at them. June says, not the jerk. I definitely wouldn't be her friend after that, much less let her use my house. Mary says, at the initial meeting, was Andre just sitting there without saying anything? For example, like, we never even slept together. Can't find a new venue sounds like a you problem.
It does.
June says, then she made a racist comment. Ouch. Abigail says, the entitlement. Captain Fluffy Paw says, also, when it comes to genetics, it's not always 50-50. And Marcia says, that's a horrible insult. Lose that friend.
So let's move on to tea time, and then we'll do one last story. We'll end on a nice high note here, folks. I know we've had a lot of drama, but we'll end on a nice, well, maybe not such a nice note. I don't know. I guess it depends on the perspective here. Amber has a joke, and I have some tea.
Well, this isn't quite a joke. So this is from
Oh yeah.
Don't Stand in the Soup by Jovial Bob
Well, they
Stein.
can't see the picture at all
Okay,
here.
well,
so
don't lose my page.
This is the book, and Amber is asking me not to lose the page, so I'm of course going to lose the page.
And this is the world's funniest guide to manners. So basically, it's a bunch of these fake letters that Jovial Bob Stein addresses. So,
yes.
Dear Jovial Bob, last Friday night, my boyfriend invited me to go to a roller disco with him. I looked forward to it all week, but when we got there, he didn't have enough money, and he could only rent one skate. We had to take turns using the skate, and I was so embarrassed I just wanted to die. Eventually the skate broke because I had to put all my weight on it, so we walked home. I told my date that he's a cheapskate. Do you think I did the right thing? Phoebe, Des Moines, Idaho, Iowa. And Jovial Bob replies, no, I think that's a very bad joke. Please do not write to me again until you have funnier material.
And Amber told this joke to me last night. And you know what I said to her? Like Jovial Bob Stein has any room to speak about bad jokes, right? I mean, it's insulting that he would even suggest that somebody has a bad joke.
And now
King of the worst jokes.
Now we get our joke for tonight. Where did the chicken go on her vacation?
Where did the chicken go on their vacation? I can tell you exactly where the chicken went on their vacation. They went across the road.
To Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia? That makes sense. That makes sense. They went across the road to Philadelphia. And I have Earl Grey.
And I have an announcement.
Oh yeah, Amber does have an announcement.
Yes, so I was nominated for this a horror website, the Sinister Scoop, and they just like do a bunch of like interviews and book reviews and all kinds of cool stuff, and they're having an awards show, and I was nominated for the category of author to keep an eye on. So, and the 3 anthologies I'm in are also nominated for various awards.
Yeah.
So, pretty happy about that. I was just like buzzing yesterday, could barely sit still. I was like, someone nominated me. I have no idea who, but it makes me feel really special.
So yeah, and I'll also end up in the community tab sharing a link to that poll. So if anyone is interested in rating people, I'm not telling you who to vote for. Of course, vote your conscience if you are familiar with people.
Yeah, there's a lot of great authors on there. A lot of them are my friends too. So like, and it's all in good fun. So like, don't feel obligated to vote for me. There's a lot of really, really solid authors on there. But
yeah. So yeah. And let's get into that last story. So congratulations to Amber on that. Lots of congratulations there. All right, folks. Oh, I'm on tea time here. You can't see. Oops, that's not the title. we aren't going to the title screen here, folks. We're starting over from the beginning. We're gonna reread these stories until we get them right. Our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Being Sensitive When My Friend Told Me That Celebrating My Birthday as an Adult is Immature and that nobody cares about when I'm born? I thought this one was an appropriate one to end on, given that Amber's birthday was just the other day. So, I'm 26, turning 27 tomorrow. I invited all my friends and girlfriend over to my place to celebrate, sending them a pic of ice cream cake that I bought, as well as 27 candles. One of my newer friends that we met about 8 months ago sent me a private text that my birthday is meaningless and nobody cares about when I'm born, and that I'm in my late 20s, and as a grown man, I need to grow up and realize that the world isn't about me. I told him to chill, and that I value my birthday because every year it kind of represents a new step in my life. He told me that age is just a number after 18 and that I'm a complete weirdo for caring so much as to buy myself a 27 candle. I told him that if he's going to be so disrespectful, he can just go away. And he told me that I'm really getting mad about a birthday. I told him that it's not about that and it's about his rudeness and being called for behavior and me caring about something being so harmless. He said that he doesn't want to be friends with a grown man who cares so much about age. And I told him, bro, I'm just see age as another year of my life in which I'm more mature and have new experiences, etc. And what's wrong with that? He said everything is wrong with that, and that there is no difference between 18 and 27. It's meaningless distinction, and that the fact that I'm still trying to justify it is just pathetic. I felt really upset that he was sending me this stuff, and I didn't know what to do, so I told him that I'm not going to argue with him anymore, and that I'm probably not sure if I want to continue a friendship with someone who's so disrespectful. He kept sending me comments about how pathetic and immature I am, and I just blocked him. Am I the jerk? Alright, folks, what do you think of this one?
No, not the jerk. This dude is just draining all the fun out of life. Like, if you want to celebrate your birthday, celebrate your birthday. I definitely, like, I had my little birthday crown on the birthday episode we did for this site. I posted to my socials about my birthday. I don't like big parties these days, but like when I was, younger, I was a big party person. I'd throw myself these themed parties, which took a lot of time and energy and planning. So like a little bit more low key, but like, if big parties are your thing, like go for it.
Yeah.
More power to you.
So, I mean, I think there's an important conversation here, and like sometimes it's nice to celebrate things, right? And the reason why it's nice to celebrate is because it kind of shows there's a certain ceremony type of thing to it, right? It allows you to create distinctions in your life and allows you to celebrate things. And while, yeah, he's right, at a certain point that everything is just a number, and if you want to boil everything down, what is the point of anything, right? But that's not the thing. The thing is, like, we often make our own meanings and distinctions in life, right? And we choose what's important to us. And he can say that, oh, age is just a number. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who value putting these distinctions down and looking back and reflecting on them and saying, look, I did something. Here is another thing that I can have as an accomplishment, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally my Instagram post today was talking about how, like, my birthday last year, I had 0 publications to my name. And now I've got 3. And, like, it's an arbitrary block of time, but, it's a way for me to see, oh, look, I did this thing in this time. And it sounds like that's kind of what OP is, too. Like, he's like, I'm more mature, I've done more cool things, and I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So I think that this friend is being just a real stick in the mud here. People need things to celebrate. People need reasons to get together and be friendly to each other and happy for each other, right? And a birthday is another one of those reasons. So I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating a birthday. But what do the folks have to say in the comments?
So Mary says, wow, will the friend reach the 12-month mark? Sounds like probably not.
No.
Abigail says, sounds like someone never had birthday parties growing up. Jean says, the friend is delusional. I would drop that friend. Sounds jealous. Mary says, bro, I will look back at my last birthday the year before I met you as the good old days. Marcia says, we celebrate everything, especially birthdays. Life is more fun when we celebrate. Dump the friend.
Yeah.
Abigail says, we should all utilize every opportunity to be cheerful. And Mary says, sounds like SpongeBob conversing with Squidward.
It does.
And then June says, last year I said I didn't want a party and my friends got sad, so we had a nice barbecue.
Well, that was nice. I'm glad that they were able to give you a barbecue. It's always nice to celebrate things. Speaking of celebrating things, folks, we made it through another month. Congratulations. Thank you all for joining me for this live stream.
Did we ever find out what our favorite insect was?
Did we ever find out what our favorite insect is? I will check on that as we do our outro, and we'll talk about that here as I flip to a random screen here. Let's see. We have butterflies and ladybugs coming in tied, folks.
Ooh.
Tied. 38% of people. So 12% of people like other. I don't know what the other are. So if you like another different type of bug, let me know. And then dragonflies, so 12%. Dragonflies are a nice fly, right? They breathe fire. They get rid of mosquitoes. What could be better than dragonflies? Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you for... No locusts. Yes. I mean, you can put the locusts into the other category, though. So thank you all for joining me today, and Amber. So we had a lot of fun here. I hope you enjoyed these stories. They were some wild ones, some of the leftovers from the month that we couldn't fit in one place or another, and I'm glad that we were able to share them today. So thanks so much for watching. And yes, thank you, Marcia. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, June. Happy live stream. Thank you, Mary, for joining us. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, everyone. You've all been so great today.
Bye.
Yes, thank you, Mary, as well. I'm glad you have fun. Have a great weekend. Bye, June. Have a great weekend. Any last morals, Amber?
Be nice to the people in your life. Don't be rude and bully them and all that bad stuff. Just treat people with love and respect.
I think
And
that's a good moral.
but don't be afraid to set appropriate boundaries when people aren't treating you the same.
Yeah, I think that's a good moral. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Oh, yeah, and the next live stream is on June 28th. As you can see, I am ahead of the curve, and I've already updated it. Well, good luck.
Yes, good luck.
Yes, June says, last day of school, wish me luck this summer. Good luck, June. You're gonna need it. Kids.